What's up, everybody, and welcome back. Today I'm going to be answering a really basic, simple question for if you're new at making pizza. I'm going to be showing you how to stretch pizza dough. Been getting a lot of questions about the basics, so I figured what better way to start with how to stretch it. So first thing I'd like to say before we even get this out of the bag is when I'm training people on how to make pizza, one of the first things I tell them is especially when you're bagging it, which will be in a future video, we can go over making dough and bagging it. When you're bagging it, it's very important to get it into the corner of the portion bag like this. So when it proofs straight up and it still keeps it round. I always tell people when you start with a circle, it's easier to end with a circle. Now, sometimes they don't proof perfectly straight up and you'll get kind of like a lopsided oval, kind of like an egg shape, and you can get it circle, but it's definitely a little more difficult, especially when you're trying to learn how to do this for the first time. It's easier to start with a circle. So we'll just get right into it. So first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get the dough ball out of the bag. You usually turn it over so the pointy side is on the bottom. You're going to want to make sure it's covered really well in flour on all sides. I usually give it a little, I hope you can see this, I give it a little push and push the air out that it's in the wall, and then I flip it over and I'll press all around. Just like that. Should flatten it out, nice and staying circle. So then I'll start working it around. I don't know if you can really see this, but I'll have one of my thumbs closer to the edge and one of my thumbs more towards the inside. So you're simultaneously stretching the outside crust and the inside crust. But the main part of the crust, the thick part, is going through the middle of your hand, so you're not actually squishing the crust, so you're still going to have that structural crust so it can puff up in the oven. So once you get it down, don't be afraid to put a little flour down. Once you get it down on the table, there's a million ways to stretch dough. I've seen a lot of people do it. I can only show you the way that I've found over the years to do it. So when I get it to this point on the table, I'll press it out. Now, I focus more on the outside edges, like you can see here, because you want to try and keep the middle a little thicker, because when you're stretching it, you're going to stretch usually from the middle to the outside. Once you've done quite a few pizzas and you learn the feeling of the dough, you can work on just stretching the outside, and I'll explain that here in a second. But if you're a beginner and this is your first time stretching dough, you definitely want to make sure that you leave the middle a little thicker so you're a little forgiving at the end. So usually then I'll take my hand and go around to form your crust, just like this. Some places need it a little bit more than others. Then once your crust is formed, I'll usually flip it over again, press very lightly down. Once again, you don't want to squish out that middle, just retaining that circle shape. Little extra flour on top. Then you're going to want to grab a large screen. Here we go. Now, it's a very controversial thing to do. Some people don't like putting anything down. I always like to do a light dusting, as you saw, just as a little insurance policy. So this is the part that takes some time. The way that I've had success in training people on how to slap the dough back and forth, toss pizzas, is you want to leave the weight of the dough on the table or the workspace that you're working on. Try to learn to be able to go like this, back and forth from hand to hand. Once you got a good feeling on that, you're going to want to start to turn the dough. Now, I know it can be hard to see, but if you see where my hand is here, I'm putting it in, I'm turning the dough. Every single time it goes back and forth, you're going to turn that dough. Now, you want to pull it down your arm, too, as you can see here, simultaneously, keeping it on the table for whenever you're learning. Go back and forth, pull it down your arm. Now, you can see, just from doing that, this dough has already gotten bigger, and it's maintained relatively circular shape. So at this point, once you've got the technique down and you can do that and you're comfortable, gravity then becomes your friend. So you pick it up and you can see it's pulling, so it helps it stretch even more. And if you have a really light, airy dough that's not super dense, then the gravity really helps pull it. You don't gotta sit there and go back and forth a whole bunch of times. You can just go a couple times and it's stretched to the size that you need. So once you get it pretty stretched to the size that you're looking for, that's relatively close to where we're trying to, a little bit further to go, you can pick it up. And then this is the part where I was referencing in the beginning, where you want to try and keep your middle thick, because this is where everybody every new person that I've worked with making pizzas, they want to stretch all of it from the middle, and then you end up with thin spots in the middle. So we'll go around, and you're just going to pull. Now, I think the best way to show you, you basically want to leave it draped over your hands like this. Now, watch your thumbs. I've seen more people poke holes in pizzas than you would believe just because of their thumbs. Just like when you're going back and forth, you want to keep your hands tucked in, your fingers tucked in and down, so this way you don't get any holes in any dough. So once you've gotten it up, stretch it around. You can put it right on your screen. Now, this is the easy part. Dough is very forgiving. As you can see, I'm a little bit overstretched here, which is fine. I purposely overstretch all of my pizzas because it's easier to go out in than it is to go out. So you see what I'm doing here? Kind of just like flapping it, fluttering it back in there, fanning it, I think would be a better word. Fluttering. I don't know what I'm talking about. So, but you want to kind of flap it back in there, fan it, go around, and then I usually run my fingers around the lip of the screen. See how it pushed it all up on there? And what that does is that makes sure that all the dough is on top of the screen, and when you go to stick it in the oven, you don't have any dough hanging off like this, and it goes up underneath and you catch a lip. And then next thing you know, the pizza's sticking to the stone or it's sticking to the screen. So I hope this video helps. Let me know if there's anything else I can help anybody with. Until next time, stay safe.